What is up YouTube? I'm Royal, I'm rank 1 Wildrift, and I've been spamming the new patch. As you guys already know, we're already in Master tier with an absurd 70% win rate. So I've been figuring out what's best in this new season and this new patch, and I'm excited to share it with you. Let's start off with the mid lane. In the God tier, I'm gonna have Kassadin, Jace, and of course the newest champion, Lissandra. Lissandra is extremely strong with her point and click targeted CC on her ultimate. It allows you to shut down problematic champions in the enemy team. Kassadin, of course, is the anti-mage champion. Currently, mages are extremely strong. Champions like Ziggs, Syndra, Corki, Morgana, which are all in S tier, are very strong, and Kassadin counters all of those champions while still dealing insane amounts of damage in the late game, which is obviously where he shines the most. You don't pick him for the early game. But if you are looking for a strong early game, I recommend picking up Jace, who's also in the God tier, one of the strongest early game champions, and he scales extremely well throughout the entire game. In the S tier, we're of course gonna have the assassins that are always really good, like Akali and Diana. Akali's damage is absolutely absurd. Zed is actually joining the S tier, even though I don't think Eclipse is great on him. The meta has shifted in favor of Zed, and the champions that are now stronger, Zed is really good against. So even without Eclipse, I definitely think he's S tier going forward. All the A tier, S tier, and God tier champions are all really good and can definitely carry games. In the B tier, all of these champions can be good in the right situation. However, I would not recommend just playing them all the time, right? They all fill their niches. And I would probably stay away from the C tier champions. They're just kind of weak unless you're like a Pike one trick. Let's move on to the jungle, where we've had quite a few changes. In the God tier, of course, we're going to have Lee Sin, as you know. Viego has been really strong ever since the buffs. Lilia I still think is really strong, even though I don't think she's as strong as last patch. And Xin Zhao is one of the hidden OPs of this patch. He does really good with Thunder Sky, the new item. And then in the S tier, we have a bunch of champions that are still really good. Any of these champions can be a massive problem. Master Yi still continues to dominate. Graves is actually one of the biggest benefactors of the item changes. Darius got some massive buffs. Riven got some massive buffs. Wukong benefits with the items. Vise benefits with the items. Maokai did get nerfed, however, I still think he's one of the best tank junglers. Amumu is one of the best tank junglers right now. Aatrox, Hecarim, all of these champions are really good. Even the champions in the A tier have a lot of carry potential, and champions in the B tier fulfill more of a niche, however, they can still be really good. I would recommend staying away from the C tier and D tier champions. Obviously, Twitch can't really jungle anymore, unfortunately. Moving on to the Baron lane, where we've seen quite a few changes, right? That's where the new items impact the most, since Thunder Sky is more of a bruiser item, so a lot of Baron laners love it. And this is where I have Riven in the God tier as probably the best user of the new items. And she also received some nice buffs on her first ability's cooldown. Darius, of course, received some massive buffs on his ulti damage, so he's definitely God tier. And Renekton is one of the biggest benefactors of the new items as well. Fiora received massive buffs in the patch before this, and I still consider her really strong, and she does benefit from the new items slightly. I don't think Thunder Sky is too good on her yet. However, I'll have to experiment more. Aatrox, of course, Thunder Sky is really good on him, and Ornn continues to be the best tank choice. In the S tier, we have champions who are still really good, and they fulfill a strong niche. However, I wouldn't consider them God tier. However, all these champions in the S tier are more than powerful. You can definitely use them to climb. A tier, they begin to get a little weaker. However, they still have a good niche. If you're looking for other tank options and you don't want to go Ornn, there's definitely Shan in the S tier. Set, I guess, is not fully a tank, but you do go pretty tank on him. Mundo, Maokai, all of these great choices. I would avoid the B tier champions. I do think they're pretty weak compared to A, S, and God tier. Maybe they should all be in C tier, to be honest, but they all fulfill a niche, right? Sometimes you can pick them as like a situational counter pick. Moving on to the ADCs, we have, of course, Varus tier. Varus continues to be the best ADC in the game. I decided to give him his own tier because of how absurdly strong he is after the AD buffs. This champion is just absolutely absurd. Now the Infinity Edge also got weaker. That means that Varus gets even stronger because he's not even an Infinity Edge user. Then in the God tier, I have Ezreal and Xayah, who I consider the next best ADCs after Varus. And I've strongly debated adding Kalista to the God tier. I think Kalista is really, really strong as well. However, I decided to keep her in the S tier because I don't think she's as strong as a good Ezreal and a good Xayah. And of course, joining Kalista in the S tier is going to be Caitlyn, Kai'Sa, and Zeri, who are the premier hyper carries. And in the A tier, of course, we have other really, really strong ADCs that fulfill a decent role. And in the B tier is the ADCs I don't recommend playing. I know you guys really love Jhin, however, I just don't think he's as strong as some of the other options here. If you want like a more supportive ADC, go Ashe. Her arrow is a really broken ability. Vayne is really good only with Lulu, otherwise super weak. And kind of same goes for Jinx, but if you're gonna play hyper carry with Lulu, you might as well go Kai'Sa. You might as well go Tristana or something else. In the C tier, of course, we have really weak ADCs. Senna is not really an ADC, she's a support, right? And in the D tier, we have the troll picks that I only put there to discourage you guys from picking them. Finally, let's move on to supports, where I do think Maokai is still a God tier champion. I think he's still really, really strong in the support role, right? It doesn't really matter if his damage gets nerfed because you pick him support for the utility. Lulu is definitely the best enchanter in the game, and Nautilus is the best tank engage after Maokai, right? They're both really, really strong at tank engage, but Lulu is definitely the best enchanter. In S tier, you have the other really good engage champions like Pyke, Gragas, Thresh, Leona, right? And then the best enchanter champions like Yuumi. Karma is more of a mage. Janna, and Braum is kind of like a tank defensive champion, not really an engaged champion, he's more of a protector. He's definitely up there too. In the A tier, you have the other really, really good supports that can be really strong situationally, and I do recommend staying away from the B and C tier supports. Unless you can hit every grab and you're just a god on Blitzcrank, then go ahead and pick him, even though I do think you might as well just play Thresh or Nautilus. I do recommend staying away from Morgana. I've been seeing a lot of Morgana supports. If you have a Morgana, just play her mid lane. On supports, it's just not as useful. All she can do is kind of help you push, but in a 2v2, she just doesn't provide a lot of value. And that is it from my tier list. I hope you guys are having a good season. Please let me down in the comments how you're doing this patch and what picks you are abusing. One thing I do want to do before I end is I want to go back to the Baron lane and look at Nasus. I have him in A tier, but honestly, this champion has so much potential this patch. Under the right circumstances, he can absolutely dominate, right? That's what I highlighted for you guys because I don't want you to think that I think that Nasus is weak. I actually think he's really strong. I just feel like he's only useful in certain niche situations where you can AFK farm and you're not getting punished in the early game, which just doesn't happen versus good players, right? So yeah, please let me know down in the comments what champions you guys are using to climb and tell me how you're doing in this new season. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe for more Wild Rift content.